Mason and Kim had always loved going out on Friday nights, drinking and partying until the early hours of the morning. They were always on the lookout for new places to go, so when they heard about a club on the outskirts of town, they were excited to check it out. They took a taxi to get there, but thus they had no idea that it would be their last ride. As they entered the car, they immediately felt uneasy. The driver was dressed like a clown with garish makeup, a red nose, and a huge grin that seemed to stretch from ear to ear. The clown turned to them and gave them a toothy grin. "Where to?" the clown asked in a voice that sounded like nails on a chalkboard. Mason gave the address of the club and the clown started driving. The ride was silent except for the sound of the engine and the occasional cackle from the clown. The couple didn't say anything, not wanting to provoke the creepy driver. After what felt like an eternity, the taxi pulled up outside the club. Mason and Kim quickly got out, relieved to be away from the clown. But as they walked towards the entrance, they heard a voice behind them. "Hey, you forgot your change!" the clown shouted, holding out a handful of coins. Mason and Kim turned around to take the money, but as they reached for it, the clown suddenly lunged forward, grabbing them both by the throat. Mason and Kim tried to fight back, but the clown was too strong. They felt themselves getting weaker as he choked the life out of them. Just when they thought it was all over, the clown released them and laughed maniacally. Mason and Kim fell to the ground gasping for air as the clown got back into his taxi and drove away, leaving them to die. Mason and Kim lay there for what felt like hours, their bodies battered and broken. But somehow they managed to drag themselves to their feet and stumble into the club. The music was loud and the lights were flashing, but no one seemed to notice the two bloodied and bruised bodies stumbling towards the dance floor. As they walked through the crowded club, they heard whispers and snickers behind their backs. They knew they looked like a mess, but they didn't care. All they could think about was the clown and what he had done to them. They decided to leave the club and try to find help. But as they walked out into the dark street, they saw the clown's taxi waiting for them. They tried to run, but the clown was faster. He grabbed them both by the arms and dragged them back to the car. Mason and Kim were thrown into the back seat, their hands tied behind their backs. The clown got into the driver's seat and started the car, his eyes glowing in the darkness. As they drove through the empty streets, the clown turned to them and said, "You should have never come here. You should have never gotten into my taxi." Mason and Kim knew they were going to die, but they refused to go down without a fight. They struggled against their restraints, trying to break free, but it was no use. The clown was too strong. Finally, they arrived at an abandoned carnival on the outskirts of town. The clown dragged them out of the car and led them through the rusted gates. The carnival was a maze of twisted metal and broken rides, and Mason and Kim knew that they would never make it out alive. The clown led them to a dark corner of the carnival where he tied them up and left them alone. As they lay there, their bodies aching, they heard the sound of footsteps approaching. They knew it was the clown. The clown's makeup was even more smeared now, and his eyes were wild with madness. He carried a rusty knife and a chain in his hands, and he began to approach the helpless couple. Mason and Kim struggled against their bindings, but it was no use. The clown was too powerful, and he was enjoying every second of their torment. He began to taunt them with his knife, slicing it through the air and making small cuts on their skin. The couple screamed in agony, and the clown cackled with glee. He was relishing the fear he was causing, and he had no intention of stopping. He was going to make sure that Mason and Kim would never forget him. The clown continued to torture them for what felt like hours, but in reality, it was only a few minutes. Mason and Kim were exhausted, and they knew that their time was running out. Finally, the clown raised his knife, ready to deliver the final blow. Mason and Kim were later found, dead. The clown has never been found by the National Police. His location is still unknown.